New Mexico prosecutors will not pursue an appeal of a court's decision to dismiss an involuntary manslaughter charge against Baldwin in the fatal shooting of a cinematographer on the set of his film, the Western movie Rust. So this was announced late yesterday by the Santa Fe, New Mexico District Attorney's Office there as well. So the prosecutor in the case, that you can make the argument, bungled the original case altogether. Her name, Kari Morrissey, is not going forward with an appeal of the dismissal of the case itself. And so she withdrew the appeal of this decision. Remember, this decision came in July. We were highly anticipating this trial. It lasted for about 2.5 days. And then the judge there dismissed the charge against Baldwin in the death of cinematographer Helena Hutchins, who he accidentally shot with a prop gun. Remember, the prop gun had a live round in it during a rehearsal on the set. This was back in October of 2021. I have a statement in front of me by Baldwin's defense attorneys, and they say this, quote, "Today's decision to dismiss the appeal is the final vindication of what Alec Baldwin and his attorneys have said from the beginning. This was an unspeakable tragedy, but Alec Baldwin committed no crime. The rule of law remains intact in New Mexico," they say. So, a lot of headlines coming out, one of which is on Variety's homepage, Alec Baldwin's manslaughter case is finally over. Let's talk about this case even more. Someone who's guided us through it every step of the way, our friend, legal analyst, Randy Zelin. He joins me there. Randy, good to see you, and thanks for being with us here on this Christmas Eve. But this was a major, major update here. So is it true? Is it declarative? Can you say it unequivocally? The case is over. That's what some headlines have read today.
Oh, the criminal case is over, but make no mistake, it is not over because Alec Baldwin was found to have been innocent, not guilty, but was found innocent. And I am not for one moment taking anything away from Alex Spiro's defense of Mr. Baldwin. I am not taking anything away from the notion that this was a tragic accident. But let's call it what it is. The district attorney's decision not to pursue an appeal was selfish. It had nothing to do with the question of guilt or innocence. It had only to do with the reality that to pursue the appeal would have exposed the district attorney's office to more embarrassment as a result of having failed to turn over what we call exculpatory evidence. That is why the judge dismissed the case. The judge dismissed the case because the judge found that it was beyond horrific that the district attorney failed to turn over exculpatory evidence to the defense and felt that the only way to right that wrong was to dismiss the charge. And to pursue the appeal would have been to open up that wound all over again. And the DA's office clearly said, no mas.
Okay, yeah, Randy, that was my question, I guess. Why wouldn't Kari Morrissey and her office, pursue the appeal? You're chalking it all up to reputational harm. Close the wound is what you're saying, and they did not want to open that wound yet again. And this was very technical at the time, to your point. This was about the withholding of evidence that the judge had not even seen, and she dismissed the case entirely with prejudice here. So is that all about this story, that they did not want to open this up again because of that?
That's what the story is. They won't tell you that. They won't admit to it. But Andrew, I've had friends whose careers have been ended on a dime upon founded allegations of the withholding of exculpatory evidence. It was humiliating. It was demeaning. There are few things that you could be accused of as a prosecutor that are more damaging, that are worse than being accused of withholding exculpatory evidence, because the law says without equivocation, a prosecutor immediately upon coming into evidence that the prosecutor knows or should know would exculpate the defendant or would in any way, shape, or form assist the defendant, put the defendant in a better light, even get the defendant a better sentence, you must turn that over immediately. You can't hide that.
Yeah.
You can't forget that you ever had it. It's not like that scene from Naked Gun with Leslie Nielsen. He's like, oh, wow, I guess he really didn't do it. No, you've got to turn that over immediately. The prosecutor didn't. The ultimate sanction to have that case dismissed, one of the most high-profile cases we've seen, they were not going back there for another brutalization as an office.
Yeah, because it seemed like those higher up than even Morrissey's office there at the Santa Fe County District Attorney, I'm talking about the State Attorney General's office, essentially saying that, quote, it did not intend to exhaustively pursue the appeal on behalf of the prosecution. So it seems like a lot of kind of relevant legal entities in the state of New Mexico ultimately decided it's just not worth it here. And so obviously we know Alec Baldwin, has faced civil lawsuits that have been settled as well. Confidentially, we don't know the monetary sum for that. We also heard today, Randy, we're going to get to this in just a moment. We haven't aired it yet. The powerhouse criminal defense attorney, Gloria Allred, she represents members of Helena Hutchins's family, and she spoke out at length about this story today. What do you think they're thinking? You alluded to this at the very top of our interview about Alec Baldwin's perceived guilt in this. Barring any legal technicalities aside here, you think he's still guilty?
It's not a matter of, quite frankly, what I think. It's simply a matter of what the evidence showed. And I do think that the prosecution had a tough road to hoe. And I do believe that if it weren't Alec Baldwin who was holding that gun, I doubt that a case would have been brought. Sometimes, and people love to say, oh, celebrities get away with things. There's a two-tiered system of justice. If you're a celebrity, you get treated differently. Sometimes you get treated worse. And I think in this particular instance, Alec Baldwin was treated worse. There still has to be a state of mind that has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. And I do think that the prosecutor had a tough road with convincing 12 people that Alec Baldwin either just closed his eyes to the high probability that that prop gun was loaded or failed to perceive the risk that the prop gun was loaded. He's an actor. He has every right to believe that if someone puts a gun in his hand, that there aren't live rounds in that gun because it's a movie. It's not real life.
And Randy, we should note as well, in case the viewers forgot, this same DA's office, they secured a conviction. They got a success in this
against
case.
The armorer. Now, the armorer is in a different position. The armorer's responsible for handling the ammunition.
Right. Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. She's serving an 18-month sentence there. And so it'll be interesting to see, whether or not any of this impacts some of her appeals down the road. If it does, Randy, we'll reach out. Randy Zelin, as always, thanks so much.
Thank you. Happy holidays.
All right. In the meantime here, like I said, we do have that press conference we were not able to get to just yet. So powerhouse attorney Gloria Allred, she represents members of Helena Hutchins's family. Remember, Helena Hutchins was a cinematographer on the set who was accidentally shot and killed on that day in October back in 2021 here. This is Allred and members of the family's reaction to this very story that the DA's office there in Santa Fe dropping their pursuit of an appeal here. Let's listen.
Carlos Hernandez and Alina Bullich. I'm going to make a statement, and then I will read a statement from the sister of Helena's Hutchins, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Hernandez also speaks Spanish, so if anyone would like a comment in Spanish, we can provide that. We represent Olga Solovey, Anatoly Andrasovich, and Svetlana Zemko, the mother, father, and sister, respectively, of Rust cinematographer Helena Hutchins. And this is about 'Twas the Nightmare Before Christmas. As you can imagine, Helena's family was devastated after hearing that the criminal case against Alec Baldwin was devastated, and that the case was dismissed by the judge before the jury was given the opportunity to fully hear the facts related to Helena's death. My clients believe that there was no justice because an impartial jury was not given the opportunity to reach a verdict regarding the guilt or innocence of Alec Baldwin. The sudden dismissal with prejudice of the criminal case by the court has left the family reeling from what they feel was an unjust outcome and a denial of justice in the criminal justice system. They wanted justice for their beloved Helena, who was killed when a bullet was discharged from the gun held by Alec Baldwin. They expected better from a court in the United States of America, and they are living in a war zone in Ukraine. Olga, Anatoly, and Svetlana had fully supported the appeal of the court's dismissal with prejudice that had been initiated by special counsel Kari Morrissey, with the authorization of the district attorney in Santa Fe. However, based upon Ms. Morrissey's press statement, which she issued yesterday, the Attorney General of New Mexico, quote, did not intend to exhaustively pursue the appeal on behalf of the prosecution, end quote. As such, the special counsel felt that she had no other option and needed to inform the court that she was withdrawing the notice of appeal from the dismissal of the criminal case, even though she felt that the dismissal of the criminal case was wrongly decided by the judge at the trial. The district attorney and special counsel felt that they had no other option because in New Mexico, the state's attorney general is the only one who is legally entitled to pursue an appeal and defend the state. And he had indicated that he would not do that in this case. His decision is the rare exception to his office's usual practice of defending a prosecutor's case on appeal. In plain English, that meant that it was futile for the prosecution to continue to take any additional steps to pursue the appeal. This news has been very upsetting to Helena's mother, father, and sister. First, Judge Marlo Summer took the criminal case away from the jury, depriving them of the ability to decide the criminal case against Alec Baldwin, in which he was charged with involuntary manslaughter. Then the New Mexico Attorney General, Raul Torres, decided that he would not allow the justices of the New Mexico's appellate court to decide if the trial judge's decision was correct or if the trial court had wrongfully decided the case, and if, as a result, there should be a new trial. And a New Mexico jury should have an opportunity to decide if Alec Baldwin was guilty or not guilty of involuntary manslaughter. Clearly, the rights of Alec Baldwin were protected, but the due process rights of the victims, Helena Hutchins and her parents and her sister, were violated. Even though the New Mexico Victims' Rights Statute states that, quote, a victim shall have the right to be treated with fairness and respect for the victim's dignity throughout the criminal justice process, end quote, that did not happen here. For example, even though the New Mexico Victims' Rights Law indicates that a victim shall have a right to confer with the prosecution, the New Mexico Attorney General never even spoke to Helena's parents and sister, nor did he reach out to their private attorneys to contact them. In addition, he never gave a reason that he would not pursue an appeal. We are very grateful to Special Prosecutor Kari Morrissey, who was dedicated to achieving justice for the victims in this criminal case, and who worked night and day and on weekends to prepare this criminal case for the jury to decide, and who was willing to pursue this case and support the Attorney General in an appeal to a higher court in New Mexico. We believe that she has been unfairly attacked and that she was and is still a professional and a talented attorney. Unfortunately, however, the New Mexico Attorney General has blocked her desire to continue the appellate process, and as such, any additional steps taken by her would be futile. As she said in her notice of the withdrawal of her notice of appeal yesterday, quote, "The charges against Mr. Baldwin were pursued after the discovery of very significant evidence that Mr. Baldwin violated gun safety rules established for the safe handling of firearms on movie sets," end quote. Even though the criminal justice system and case has now concluded, and Helena's parents were denied justice in the criminal case, we will continue to fight for justice in our civil lawsuit in New Mexico against Alec Baldwin and the Rust Productions, and we will vigorously continue to litigate our case in the civil court in New Mexico. As for Olga, Helena's mother, it is another Christmas without her beloved daughter, Helena, and another Christmas without justice. Helena, her parents and sister deserve justice, and they deserve accountability, and we will fight the good fight for them in their lawsuit. We have confidence that a New Mexico jury, if allowed to decide our civil case, would do the right thing, and we as their lawyers will do anything and everything that is legally possible and appropriate to win justice for Helena and her family. Although the Attorney General of New Mexico, Raul Torres, is the Grinch who stole this Christmas, we will work to assure that a future Christmas will be without this Grinch. And we'll be happy to answer questions. I just want to add the statement of Svetlana Zemko, sister of Helena Hutchins, and I'll provide copies so everyone has the correct spelling. My family is deeply disappointed both by the court's dismissal of the criminal case against Alec Baldwin and now by the recent withdrawal of the appeal that would have reviewed that dismissal. Mr. Baldwin must be held accountable for my sister's death that was caused when he discharged a loaded gun at her. He has never contacted our family to apologize or accept any responsibility whatsoever for her death. My mother, father, and I will press forward with our civil lawsuit until there is justice for the devastating loss of Helena from our lives, caused by Mr. Baldwin. And this is a statement by me and my law firm and our co-counsel, Carlos and Alina, and also John Carpenter of the Carpenter Zuckerman Law Firm, who couldn't be with us today. We also have photos, which we will put out afterwards. And this is Helena, and this is Olga, and this is Olga's grandson, Helena's son. And this was in happier times, obviously. He's much older now, but we've still blocked out his photo. And also, this is Helena, and this is her sister, Svetlana, whose statement I just read. And we'll put these out. Okay. Thank you. Oops. Okay. Now we'll be happy to take any questions.
Gloria, can you tell us the status of the civil lawsuit?
Sure. You want to talk about that?
Sure.
It's here. You know what? Why don't you just take my seat here?
So, as many of you know, our civil lawsuit is filed currently in New Mexico in the 1st Judicial District there. And Mr. Baldwin, from the start of our civil lawsuit, has attempted to stay the entirety of the civil proceedings. And this went back to when our lawsuit was actually in California. He had recently filed a motion to stay the entirety of the civil proceedings in New Mexico. Because of the notice of appeal that had been filed by the special prosecutor, Ms. Morrissey. With the withdrawal that was made public yesterday, we are now able to fully proceed with our civil case without any impediment from Mr. Baldwin and his legal team that it implicates his right to remain silent and avoid self-incrimination. With the conclusion now of the criminal case, we look forward to proceeding in New Mexico, and his filing of the stay motion is moot, since there is no reason now why Mr. Baldwin cannot sit for a civil deposition, respond to written questions, written interrogatories, and provide us with any and all documents that are relevant in our civil case. So we look forward to being able to do that without any further roadblocks from Mr. Baldwin and his legal team.
But the fact that there will be no criminal charges, does that weaken the civil case?
Do you want to address that?
I couldn't hear it.
Can you repeat the question?
The fact that there will be no criminal charges against Alec Baldwin, does that weaken your civil case against him?
Do you want to respond? You know, the criminal case and the civil case are different. There is a different burden of proof in our civil case. As we all know, in criminal cases, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. In our civil case, it's a preponderance of the evidence standard. In addition, we have causes of action for negligence against not only Mr. Baldwin, but the executive producers and various other crew members who were involved in the death. So our net is much wider, and many of the issues related to the negligence that caused Helena's death were not part of the criminal case. So our case is more wide-ranging, and as I said before, we're now able to fully pursue it without Mr. Baldwin attempting to stay the action.
Sorry, just one more question.
Yeah, we'll take more questions.
Gloria,
We'll take more.
As you know, her husband, Helena's husband and son settled the case with Mr. Baldwin. Why should the siblings and the mother be considered family as well, since in that view the family has reached an agreement?
Well, all my life, I always thought my parents were part of my family. I still do, even though they're deceased. So, I can't understand anyone who thinks that parents should not have legal rights if their child becomes deceased as the result of someone else's negligence. A husband and a child definitely should have rights. And I think that New Mexico is very progressive in that it does provide a right to parents and to a sibling if they can prove a close relationship that they had with their deceased loved one. And we believe that we can prove that. Even though Alec Baldwin's attorneys in the past, as part of the pleadings which they filed with the court, said that the parents were emotionally distant, that's quote, from Helena. That's false. We can prove that it's false. We will prove that it's false. And it's very hurtful to Olga and Helena's father and sister every time people talk about the family and don't include them as they spent more time with her over the years when she's growing up, and they spent time while she was living in the United States. In many ways, they were extremely emotionally close and retained that relationship. So I understand the beginning, the press were saying the family's settled, because the press perhaps didn't know that she had living parents and sister, living in Ukraine, living in a war zone, being bombed, Kyiv where they are, being bombed on a regular basis, hospitals, schools, residences. So, yeah, they're part of her family. They matter.
Gloria, what penalty would
Oh, excuse me, I was going to say one other thing before I forget, but then I'll take your question. I'm paraphrasing, but Alec Baldwin said recently that he's looking forward to the truth coming out. So we're looking forward to his testimony under oath in his deposition as to what he thinks the truth really is and what's the basis for his conclusion that he's not responsible. So we'd like to hear his testimony under oath, so he tells the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which he has not done to date in our case, because we haven't been able to take his deposition yet. We will be able to take it now, because what he will testify to now will not incriminate him, because he cannot be re-prosecuted now, because the court dismissed it with prejudice, meaning it cannot be refiled, and because there will no longer be an appeal in New Mexico, and he can't be prosecuted elsewhere.
What penalty would the family like to see imposed on Alec Baldwin in the civil case?
Did you want to answer that? I couldn't hear it too well, but you can go ahead.
Sure. So our
pages. Okay.
So in our civil case, obviously we're not seeking the arrest or the detention of Mr. Baldwin. Our civil case, we're seeking damages for the loss of the relationship that Halyna Hutchins had with her mother, father, and sister. And in the civil case, those damages are compensation that need to be paid to the family. And so the civil justice system is a bit different. Again, there are punitive damages as part of our complaint, which is meant to punish those that are responsible for negligent action so that it doesn't happen. It's supposed to be to dissuade other tragic situations like this from occurring. But so that is part of our lawsuit, but we are not seeking at this time, obviously through our civil case, anything more than that.
Can you say how much? Can you put a dollar figure on the damages?
We haven't even gotten to that point in the civil case yet. We have two hurdles to, in every civil case, we have to prove liability, which we're confident we're going to do. And then the second stage of any civil case is we then talk about the damages and the extent of the damages, and we want Mr. Baldwin and the producers to fully understand the extent of the damages that have suffered. And after we get through those two doors, then we can discuss actual monetary compensation. But that hasn't been a part of any discussion at this point.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've been listening there to this press conference, this Christmas Eve news conference today. They're taking questions. The attorneys, the legal team there, of members of Halyna Hutchinson's family, including her parents and her sister. Now, remember, there was a civil settlement already reached between Alec Baldwin and the widow and young child of Halyna Hutchins. And this is regarding other family members there. And they said as much. You heard from Gloria Allred that they are now going to be pursuing ever more vehemently the civil lawsuit route to get damages for other members of Hutchins's family there in the wake of this, in the wake of the news that the Santa Fe County District Attorney's Office, led by prosecutor Kari Morrissey, are dropping their pursuit of an appeal in the Alec Baldwin manslaughter case. And so we're going to stay on top of it as well. And you heard there from attorneys in connection to the case. In the meantime here, I'm Andrew Kraft.